In an industry where the horizon of the cyber seas seems never ending and the array of things to think about seems overwhelming, the Logicalis Intelligent Security Blueprint helps organizations navigate their way through the choppy seas of today's security landscape.
Our Intelligent Security Suite of solutions is an essential offering for Logicalis to become even more relevant to our clients. It's particularly important in the current environment where IT leaders need to be hyper-vigilant in their response to the world of cyber threats.
Many very capable organizations in the security space focus on one component of the security fabric. We can knit together security across an organization's entire infrastructure, from network to data and identity.
The Intelligent Security Blueprint is composed of 5 principal areas. First, we start with advisory services. And what advisory services are meant to do is help you to define what frameworks are important, to do risk analysis, vulnerability assessments, and to help you define what your plan and your roadmap are.
Secondly, there is Secure Workplace. Securing worker communications such as email and chat, the devices they work from, and how they access the systems they use to do their job are critical security components.
We also have secure connectivity, which provides secure connectivity from your on-premises locations to the public cloud, providing a secure and safe connection to all of those different locations.
We are also able to provide a full end-to-end from build, design to manage. We have the right technology and we have the right service partners to provide that whole overall solutions for our customers.
Secure Hybrid Cloud is our offering that secures the on-premises equipment along with the public cloud locations, and that your data and applications are being secured.
As we all understand, our data is not where it used to be, and we need to adapt to data being in the cloud and adopting the zero trust model.
And lastly, but certainly not least, is Secure Operations. This is the Security Operations Center wrap, or SOC. The Logicalis SOC provides eyes on glass or highly trained security analysts 24/7 across 3 global security regions. The SOC operates as an extension of your team and alleviates the budget drain and HR burden of recruiting, retaining, and training your own team. In summary, the Logicalis Intelligent Security Blueprint provides every organization with the tools they need to protect their business, assets, and customers, all with a single strategic security partner. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy diaries to join us this morning. If we have a look at the agenda that's lined up for us today, we are going to explore the business challenges and why data security is firmly on the agenda of boardrooms. We'll have a look at the changing threat landscape and the challenges that is presenting us as organisations today. And we'll explore why it is that data security is the last bastion of defence. Then Chris from NetApp is going to walk us through the solutions you can put in place to improve your security posture, protect your data, and improve your chances of a recovery, because it's a when, not an if. Next, our very own Sandra Dunn from Logicalis will bring this all to life with customer use cases and examples to highlight the business outcomes that organisations are able to realise. And finally, we'll look at the assessment service that will help you understand where you are now in terms of data defence and what you can do to improve your position and not be the next logo in the news for all the wrong reasons. A few housekeeping bits. Questions are very much welcome, so please drop them in the chat and we'll go through them at the end. And as we go through, there'll be a number of polls which are open. You can complete those and we'll look at the results and we'll discuss what those are telling us. Finally, at the end, there will be an opportunity to register your interest for a free workshop that will help you understand your current data security posture along with recommended actions. So that's the agenda for the next 45 minutes or so. Before we get going, let's meet the speakers, get them to introduce themselves. to kick us off. Right, so Chris, over to you.
Hello, Mike. Yes, thanks for having me here today. My name is Chris McKean, and I am a security specialist at NetApp. So I will deal with securing customers' data, whether that be looking at encryption, ransomware protection, or just data protection in general.
And I've no doubt with all the headlines in the news recently, you are very, very busy, I'm sure.
Yes.
Good stuff. Sandra.
Morning, everybody. My role is to, I suppose, engage with organisations around data management, specifically around NetApp solutions and technologies, but how we can help organisations to increase data protection, data recovery across their organisation.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandra. And me, my name is Mike Fry. I've been in the business for 20 years with a security background. My role as Infrastructure, Data and Security Solutions Director is to understand customer challenges, the environment in which they're operating in, and make sure Logicalis has a set of solutions and propositions to help customers navigate those challenges. Good. Introductions done. Let's crack on and have a look at the first slide. Last month, this slide would have looked different because there would have been a different set of logos on there. But it changes monthly, changes weekly, and it changes daily. This month, of course, we can't get away from the spate of attacks in the retail industry. But it is constantly changing, and if ever there was a sign that we should accept that it's a when and not an if for all of us, this is it. Now, these are all high-profile logos, but they're all in the news for all the wrong reasons. But don't be fooled that hackers are only after high-profile brands. They are after every business that values its data as its most important and regulated asset, and that is all of us. So, M&S, been in the news now for several weeks. It's an ongoing ransomware attack that is set to last several weeks more. If you look at the different analysts, some say that they're experiencing daily market losses of around 5%. They're going to have a direct profit hit of £300 million this year. And the loss of market capitalisation since this attack started is now almost at £1 billion. Today, customers still can't get on online M&S store, and that in itself makes £4 million a day. Now, they've come out and released a bit more information about the attack in this week, and it appears to be Scattered Spider of MGM fame, true to form, launching a social engineering attack that exploited a contractor. But apparently, according to the M&S CNO, there's nothing wrong with their IT systems, which was an interesting position to take, as if this was completely unavoidable and that their security strategy is predicated on the failure of social engineering techniques, which are on the rise and have a very high success rate as well. Also in the news, Co-op, an ongoing attack, again disrupting store, stock and supply chain with large depots 20% below their normal capacity. Analysts at Deutsche Bank have estimated a £40 million hit to profits with a run rate of around £15 million per week. And then there was Harrods, the third in the trilogy, who announced their incident just days after Co-op shut down parts of their network and IT system. When all of these came out to the news, Richard Horne, CEO of the NCSC, came out and said this should be a wake-up call for every organisation. And that is sage advice, because none of us want to join these logos and make headlines for all the wrong reasons. Secondly, at Logicalis, we have what we call the Logicalis CIO Report. And each year we send out a survey to CIOs around the world on an annual basis, and then we publish the findings. Now, cybersecurity concerns are a recurring theme. However, they were more pronounced this year than ever before. In fact, 83% said they had encountered a breach in the last year, and perhaps more worryingly, only 43% said they felt ready for another attack, which of course is only a matter of time, particularly if they chose to pay the ransom. So we know from talking to organisations and our customers that these concerns are actively being discussed in the boardroom. And then, of course, we can't get away from the changing compliance landscape as well. New regulations are coming in aimed at raising the cybersecurity posture and the robustness of the EU as a whole. And that still affects UK organisations, as these regulations apply if you have any form of operations in any of the EU member states. So it affects more UK organisations than perhaps they realise. As a result, you've got new or updated acts that are being introduced, and they have got far more teeth than they ever had before. I've never met anyone who knows anyone who was penalised and fined via the original NIST directive, for example. But with NIST 2, which now incorporates much more industries and smaller organisations as well, companies face fines of 10 million euros or 2% of their global turnover, whichever is higher. And DORA, affecting financial organisations, goes further by applying fines to individuals who are responsible, and they can even face jail time as well. Now, a core component of the cybersecurity aspect of these regulations is around data compliance, protection, security, and recoverability. So fundamentally, data resilience is now a board level conversation, as organisations want to ensure their data security is congruent with their business objectives and needs. But none of this is made easier by the rapidly changing threat landscape. Essentially, ransomware remains a significant threat, and although the number of ransomware attacks appears to be reducing, they are becoming much more targeted, and the ransoms are increasing significantly, $1 million increase between 23 and 2024, as threat actors seek to improve their ROI. And when you do get hit, the average downtime is 24 days, but we can clearly see that with the recent retail attacks. However, as we know, that is only just the beginning. Even once back operational, if you are lucky enough to do so, there's a huge amount of rebuild work that drains significant time and continues to have operational impact. And top right there, a nice little stat from NetApp themselves to show that the ransoms can be absolutely eye-watering. But fundamentally, these attacks come down to data. 32% of attacks in 2024 were related to ransomware and data exfiltration. Why? Because it works as a viable business model for the hackers. I always say to organisations that you are defending yourself against a highly skilled, motivated and organised entire dark economy. These groups think with a business case mindset, and they will seek to extract the most money they can from a single attack, thereby improving their return on investment. So we are seeing the rise in triple extortion. They will encrypt your data and sell it back to you. They'll exfiltrate it, likely before you even know that you've been hacked, to either prove their point or they'll sell it to the highest bidder in a dark web marketplace. And they may leak it as well to evoke maximum havoc. I've even known hacker groups to then sell consultancy services back to the victim organisation to show how they got in the first place, and then provide guidance about how they stop it happening again. Whether you can trust that consultancy and advice, of course, is another question. And don't think paying the ransom necessarily makes this thing go away. Of those that did, only 54% got their data back. And the odds of you being attacked again, if you do, just jumped massively, because now the hackers know you're good for the cash. But the good news is those organisations that did encrypt their data significantly improved their chances of getting their data back. And if you can get your data back, fundamentally, you get your business back. So how can Logicalis help? Well, we help organisations in 5 fundamental ways. But it'll be no surprise today that we're focusing on the cybersecurity threats pillar, where we help organisations mitigate the impact of a breach in terms of reputation, disruption, and financial fallout. And to do this, we've created a framework, which the video at the beginning of the session described, called the Intelligent Security Blueprint. So let's take a quick, closer look at this. Fundamentally, this is a blueprint for how organisations can improve their security posture and mitigate the threat of a successful attack across their entire estate. And because Logicalis spans infrastructure, data, and security, It really enables us to help customers, help organizations weave security through their data center fabric and really adopt a defense in depth approach. Typically, we start out with advisory services, which likely includes an assessment of some kind, and we'll have a look at a flavour of that later. This could be against a recognised framework, a specific set of compliance or regulatory requirements, such as DORA or NIS2, or it could be in a specific technology area, such as data resiliency. In either case, these assessments give us a heat map of an organisation's strengths and gaps, and it points us to where the biggest improvements can be made, the greatest return in security posture. It covers three subsequent pillars. We have secure workplace, which is the users and the devices, secure connectivity, so the network security foundation, and secure hybrid cloud, where our data lives and the data itself. And today we are focusing on the secure hybrid cloud pillar with an important nod to identity. So that's it for me. Before I hand over to Chris to take us into more detail around data security and the solutions and strategies available to you, if we've got some results, let's bring up the results of poll 1 and take a look at what it's telling us. Okay, so perhaps no surprises there then. 100% say that data security is going to be critical. And I think that's really interesting and encouraging, because when I've spoken to people who have endured ransomware or been involved in incident response teams, they all say that having encrypted data that is clean and easily recoverable to a recent point in time is the most powerful tool in your arsenal to undermine the threat actors. Because their whole strategy and business model is predicated on you not protecting and recovering your data quickly. When you can, you quickly turn the tide in your favour, meaning you reduce the need to pay the ransom, and you become known in their circles for being a challenging target and that you don't cough up. In essence, you're saying there's no business to be had here, look elsewhere, and you stop becoming the low-hanging fruit, which is one of the most important things. And we're seeing this in our customer conversation. Lots of people talk about training and awareness, which is great, we must do that. But we can't base a security strategy on humans not humaning and not clicking links. XDR is also really topical. It's a big conversation at the moment and absolutely helps organizations or MSSPs such as Logicalis detect, respond and remediate quickly. But XDR isn't a silver bullet. We must adopt a layered approach to security, and we need to accept that people will click links or they'll be vulnerable to social engineering. And whilst XDR may slow the hacker down, protecting your data is the last bastion of defense, and as such is a critical component of a robust security strategy. Good stuff. Right, Chris, over to you to walk us through what you at NetApp can do to help.
Thank you, Mike. Some interesting points made there, particularly about the human side of breaches, because inevitably a lot of the time it's humans who are the way in because they are the weak point. I like your phrase of stop a human humaning. People will make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. So that's where then you need these solutions to mitigate attacks should they come your way. Well, they will come your way.
And I think this is where AI can be our biggest offense, but it's also our biggest adversary, because if you look at the accelerated technology that the hackers can use for AI for social engineering, it's scary. You know, I was at a security conference last week, and within 10 minutes there was a live demonstration of how someone could create an avatar. They went onto their LinkedIn, found their position, clicked into YouTube, got a picture of their face, could record their voice, and within 10 minutes you had somebody on screen who looked like somebody who's of a different gender and a different race, and it was completely convincing, you know, posing as that person's boss. So social engineering is only going to get harder to defend against, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a double-edged sword. With your example there, within an hour or two, I could be, which has always been a dream of mine, Mike Fry. So I can phone up your support desk and I'm you. I sound exactly like you. I even on a video call might even look like you. So at that point, then what's to stop me saying I just need to reset my password? And that's an attack sort of vector that we've sort of seen in probably the past 6 months coming up a lot.
For sure.
So if I can now just show you this infographic. So NetApp, we are a data solutions provider. We do a lot of work with Logicalis, and we act at that data layer. We are an intelligent data infrastructure company. We have what we're dubbing as a secure SAN. Now, you may think that a SAN is secure by its nature, and to an extent that is true. However, even on a SAN, there are users, which we talked about social engineering just, that need to administer the storage devices, so they need to look after the data. And there is also hosts that will access that data. So yes, a SAN is a relatively sort of closed loop network, but there are still ways in. And whenever there's a way in or someone who needs to administer some part of a network, there is a threat. And with this, the concentric circles you'll see on your screen now, I speak to a lot of customers in every industry. And it's getting better. And that survey that we just saw the results to there is very encouraging, but I still see a lot of lack of focus at the data security layer. And when the data is the target in an attack, that to me seems almost critical, because that's where they're going after. So if you watch that and look after that, you should hopefully be able to keep that safe. Now, Mike provided a lot of stats and figures before. So one figure, and it depends which report you read, but in general, the consensus is that insider threats are growing a lot, up to 95% in some reports, whether that be a malicious insider or just a human making a mistake. Now, with that in mind, we need to have on a data storage solution protection against insider threats. And this is where NetApp Secure SAN solutions have a few options, and two of them I'm covering here today. One being multi-admin verification. So this is the concept of having a group of administrators. So let's say, myself and Mike are the two administrators at a company. If my account were to be compromised and someone had my logon details, then they can, in theory, log on to the storage and start deleting, moving, disabling, basically making data unavailable. And in today's online connected world, once that data becomes available, it's almost like a wave. The systems that initially access the data, they will go down. Now, the systems in front of them will look fine for a period of time. That could be very short or very long. But at some point, that knock-on effect of that data being unavailable will go right to the front of the network and then will be visible to customers. So with multi-admin verification, we have a way for someone else to authorize particular commands. So I may say, do you know what? If someone wants to delete this portion of data, I would like another person to authorize that. So someone comes in as Chris McKean, they will then say, delete this financial data. Mike will get a notification to say, Chris.McKean is trying to do this action. Would you like to approve that? So it's a protection in place, because Mike can then contact me on the phone number that he knows that I have. I may say, look, I'm not even in the country, Mike. I'm on holiday at the moment. So at that point, then the request is denied, and that command, that data never gets deleted. And then we've also gone a step further with NetApp. We've got a technology called SnapLock. Now, this is used to retain data. So you can choose certain portions of data, and you can say, I would like to retain that for, and then you set your time period. And the benefit of that used to always be regulatory. It was some organization was regulated by some sort of rules that said they had to keep certain types of data for a certain amount of time. With the birth of ransomware, all of a sudden now that has become a massive security function. Having a known good copy of the data that cannot be changed or cannot be deleted, having regular sort of restore points for that is very, very valuable. Now, one of the sort of USPs for NetApp and our SnapLock technology is you actually have an option to say, set a retention date, and then there is no backdoor. So that means even if NetApp as an organization were compromised and all your administrator accounts were compromised, that data that you said, this is a good copy of the data, keep it for 5 months. It will be there in 5 months. It cannot be deleted. It cannot be changed. There is no way out. It's a very powerful tool to have at your disposal as an organization. And with that, we have a Cyber Vault solution. So you then may want to take your data from your SAN storage and you may want to have it copied off to a separate location. You can make use of that SnapLock technology. So then you've not only got a locked copy of the data, but it's stored somewhere else. So even if it's not a cyber attack, if Mike spoke about DORA before, DORA doesn't just specify that you sort of secure your networks, it makes sure that your data is available. So if you have a copy of a data somewhere else, data center 1, maybe that gets flooded. That's fine. We've got a copy of the data somewhere else and it is locked in place. And then you probably, any organization needs backups, whatever form they be in. Now, NetApp's technology, with our ONTAP systems, our secure SAN solutions, you can take a backup of that data and copy it directly to an object store. And the massive benefit of that is that you can then have that backed up to either on premises, which can be the same or a different location, but you can also copy it to the cloud. There is no other infrastructure needed. You're literally copying, because of the technology that's available in the NetApp SAN solutions, you're copying straight from your SAN storage onto a cloud object store, something like Azure Blob, AWS S3, or Google Cloud Storage. There's nothing in between, so therefore there's less things to fail, and you can lock those backups in place. So then you have, again, a copy that's in a completely different location. It's in a public cloud provider. But when you need to restore that data, because NetApp also has solutions in the hyperscalers, you could bring up that data and make it available in a hyperscaler. Even if all your data centers are completely wiped out, you could make that data available in a hyperscaler in probably around 30 minutes. And I think that is a very, very powerful message. So there are some of the things that you can do around protecting your data. But on top of that, if someone is breaking into your house or they're breaking into your organization, to limit the damage, you want to know about it as soon as possible. So on the houses, people put burglar alarms. Well, in the infrastructure, now, as of on NetApp's next scheduled ONTAP release, we will introduce ransomware protection for SAN. So for SAN workloads, we will be able to monitor real time and see signs of ransomware hitting. So if that data starts to be encrypted, very quickly, those secure SAN solutions can pick up on it and alert the administrators. And all of a sudden, that recovery time objective and recovery point objective, depending on when you took the backups, that comes right down. If you were to notice a ransomware attack after multiple hours or even multiple days, the damage that's done has grown exponentially compared to if you spot that in a minute or two, it may be a very small portion of the data that's encrypted, and therefore the recovery is a lot faster. And therefore it may mean that one of your 10 systems has a blip, as opposed to every single system of those 10 systems going completely down. So yeah, that's something we're very proud of at NetApp. And these are just some of the security features. I could talk about encryption. DORA specifies you should be encrypting your data at rest and in transit. Well, Secure SAN solutions have built-in capabilities to encrypt at rest and in transit. So anything going in and out of the box or sat on the solution, it's all encrypted. Now, with those capabilities and others that I've not got time to cover on today's webinar, unfortunately, they give us a lot of confidence around the security that we can give to your data. So we will actually offer a ransomware recovery guarantee. The way that works is, as I say, we are so confident in those solutions, in making sure that your data is safe. We will guarantee that if you are attacked, then you will be able to recover that data. And if not, NetApp will offer payouts of up to $5 million. Now, as far as I'm aware, we're the only primary storage vendor who are actually offering this ransomware recovery guarantee. So we can not only put those protections in place, which will make sure you have copies of your data locked away that can't be touched and prevent against insider threats. We can then run detection technologies to tell you when an attack is happening and enable a very speedy recovery. So if you are attacked and somehow they do encrypt all the data, you want that, as Mike said earlier on in the call, you want that available as soon as possible, because once that data is back, you can start bringing your business back. So there are some of the ways that NetApp Secure SAN Solutions can help as part of an overall offering from Logicalis. I'd now like to introduce Sandra from Logicalis, who's going to put a bit of meat on the bones and talk about times when we've worked together and customers have benefited. Sorry, put my teeth back in. Customers have benefited from these solutions. So, hello, Sandra.
Thanks, Chris. I suppose something, listening to you go through all those features and functionality, and there's still loads more that you haven't covered. I suppose the value piece that I see from a NetApp perspective is the fact that these are available as software features in the infrastructure that you invest in. So it's there's no additional cost for turning on those features.
Yes, absolutely. You deploy the solution and they are all there at your fingertips. There's no external infrastructure. There's no extra cost to them.
Yeah,
given
the data management background that NetApp is, and it's the intelligent infrastructure piece, we've only focused on the security element of it today, but and not even all of the features.
Oh no, we could go on for hours, days probably, talking about how we can enable data both in the public cloud and on premises and move that data around, and the whole time everything is done in a secure manner.
Yeah. There's another poll.
Yes, I do believe we have results of another poll. I'll just bring that up now. So we asked people, what is more of a priority, preventing attack or speed of recovery from attack? Now, this is very binary. I thought it would be a bit of a mix, but it seems that everyone thinks that recovering from the attack in a timely manner is the most important. But when you think about it, it makes sense, doesn't it, Sandra? Because if you are assuming that you will be attacked and they will breach your network, then the most important thing is getting yourself back in a good position as soon as possible.
Yeah. And I suppose that leads on to where, for us to talk about some use cases where customers have, I suppose, adopted the NetApp technology and invested in it, and how they have brought to market the different ways that, or they have seen business results that has made it important for them to I suppose, deliver to the business, have data protection that is more resilient than in the past. And I suppose we'll talk about the different sectors and what is important to different organizations. I think we'll look at maybe, this is our Logicalis and NetApp Digital City. We've gone very graphical in relation to trying to get, I suppose, some of the information around what we can do for customers and how we can help. We have worked with, this use case is financial organization. They had quite a legacy environment. They had file server environments that were, I suppose, sprawled across the organization. And part of what they wanted to do was understand more about what that data was, how they could protect it more. They were working in cycles of backup on from an incremental perspective, and then only a full backup once a week. And even that was becoming challenging because of the size of the data sets that they were backing up. We looked at the consolidation. We delivered a project, proposed to NetApp solutions across their 2 data centers with asynchronous, but quite a short lag in relation to the data replication, but also with the ability to classify that data and give more insight into the type of data that they have, whether there were compliance or risks to having personal data in locations that they shouldn't be. They've also looked at increasing the ransomware recovery by having the autonomous ransomware protection on these devices. And also, as Chris talked about, the ability to, in the event of some changes happening in the environment, to take a copy of that data to therefore reduce the RPO and the RTO, allowing them to recover in the event of a data breach. It's also giving them the ability to give increased insights to their business as to the type of data that they have, and actually what the cost of potential stale data is in relation to it. Another organization, I suppose not too different, is an insurance organization. Initial conversations were around how we could help that organization to remove tape, but to ensure that their compliance requirements were met. And that was an initial discussion around what I suppose Chris called a cyber vault device. It's one of the NetApp devices that can be used in any environment, but with the snap block capability on it. That conversation then further covered how actually they had a legacy environment. They needed to look at a infrastructure refresh, also consolidate down environments. But also, as these conversations were happening, they had a DORA process that had kicked off in the background, and they wanted to understand how they could utilize the technology that they invest in into delivering some of those requirements and processes. The solution, we implemented a solution that has 2 active sites. They have the ability to run their business, will have the ability to run their business in either of those locations. They have multiple recovery points in relation to the snapshot technology, but also they have a compliance system that in the event of a breach, it's while in one of the locations, it has data retention and compliance lock for 30 days. They then have obviously backups that go further than that. But this ensures that in the event of a breach, be it cybersecurity or internal in relation to their data, they have increased RPOs and RTOs. They've increased the data security by turning it on and enabling a number of the features that Chris talked about today and some others. And they have now a resilient and agile infrastructure that allows them to adapt to some of the additional projects that their organization looks for. And I think I'll give one more in relation to this. This is a public sector organization, again, a number of locations where they have data and they need to ensure that they protect it. They have 2 production sites with bidirectional replication of their data, along with increased, I suppose, data recovery points with snapshot capability. Again, and probably, before the term cyber vault device, they implemented a compliance system in a 3rd location that would allow them to lock their data for a given period. I think it's up to about 60 days at this moment in time. And then in the event that they, again, had a cybersecurity breach, that they would have the ability to recover that data. The outcome is they have an agile infrastructure that can adapt. They can deliver services to their users from any location. They multiple remote locations, and they were able to consolidate those and use some of the software capability to deliver NetApp or ONTAP features in those locations, allowing you to protect that data in the same way as if you had a NetApp device or a data storage infrastructure. The outcome for them is that they will continue to look at how they can enhance their security posture, but that they have the infrastructure in place that is allowing them, as threats change and as challenges come along, they have the infrastructure in place that allows them to adapt and protect their data. I suppose from my perspective, speaking to lots of our customers, we have increased questions around how we can deliver solutions that have enhanced features from a security perspective. Our traditional conversations have been with the IT and with the storage or IT manager, IT directors, and it has been focused around managing your data and protecting your data. We're now seeing additional conversations where we have organizations that will ask us to speak to their security teams and talk to them around how we can meet regulation in some instances, but also in others, increase the security posture of the overall organization. They're just a flavor of some of the customers that we deal with and have dealt with. As part of this webinar and I suppose sharing of information, we'd like to engage further and help you to address some of your business challenges and how you can improve and increase your security posture. As part of that, we're offering a 2-hour workshop, approximately 2-hour workshop, where we would include our cyber resilience team, combination of both Logicalis and NetApp personnel, but also the important piece is to include the owners of the different areas within your organization. And we can set out guidelines, we can share information, but we can also, as part of that, deliver an assessment around your infrastructure that will give you insights into how your infrastructure is positioned, how you could improve operational efficiency, reduce cost in some areas, and also understand a bit more about whether you're protecting data that isn't relevant to the business anymore. So there is kind of 2 phases as part of that. There's the general infrastructure piece, and then there can be an additional layer around the data and the insights that you can get from that. My contact details will be in the chat, and for those that would like to understand more about this, you can speak to me or contact me and we can have a conversation around it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sandra. I think we're going to have a look backstage to get your camera fixed. But I am interested to pick up on that assessment. I think that's a really useful tool. Chris, you get involved in those with Sandra. How easy is it to run those assessments in a customer environment?
Well, for experienced companies like ourselves, it's fairly easy. You know, they are not intrusive. They can just be done. They're not going to affect your business operations, but then they can give you a real picture of where you are now and where you could be. You know and then we can talk about utopia and see how long we can get you on that sort of security journey.
Yeah. So that's an agentless assessment that's quite unobtrusive then.
Yep.
Good. And how long do those assessments usually run for?
The assessments usually take, from just a NetApp point of view, they can take around an hour or 2 hours.
Okay, good stuff. All right, Sandra, you're back.
Yes, apologies.
Thank you. Right,
you got picture and sound.
Yes, which is always a win. All right, I'm conscious of time, but let's just pick some of these questions. So pick one of the first one that came in. What is your take on what has happened to M&S Co-op? Would they not have things in place to get back on their feet quickly? I've got a view on this, but Chris, Sandra, what are your thoughts?
So I think that's where, and obviously we don't know the exact details. I've read some things unofficially, but I couldn't comment on them because they've not come out from the companies themselves. But if they would have had a portion of their data, some sort of snaplock or indelible data type technology available on that, the primary storage where the data was hit with ransomware, then, in my opinion, they could have restored a lot quicker. Obviously, the restoration and the data being available, it depends on the systems then that access that data and how quickly they can be cycled or whatever needs to be done to them to get them back on track. But I would have said some sort of secure backup, cyber vault, or indelible data solution would have really helped in these situations.
Yeah, Sandra?
I think partly some of it is also the audit trail. So without an audit trail or with a longer, with longer time to understanding that you have a problem, it means that even if you can restore your data, you can't do so until you've been able to ensure that you've audited and logged the impacted environment. And I think sometimes, the technology can help, but I suppose understanding and being able to highlight the files that have been impacted and quickly being able to do that helps you to then allow the organization, or as Chris maybe talked about, is being able to segregate that out and recover in a different location. So protecting, and ensuring that you can continue your audit, but making data available to your customers and your users.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sandra. Sometimes, I probably simplified the process then. Recovering the data is one thing, then there's bringing up all the other systems around it, but then there's the whole forensics piece and finding out exactly what went on. Some businesses will require that to be fully complete before they'll do the restoration.
Yeah, but if you can do that to a different location, and still protect the integrity of that audit, then your business has the ability to be up and running in a much shorter time frame.
Yeah,
I thought that the statement came out from M&S CEO this week, and I think it's quite indicative of a bit of an organisational mindset shift which organisations had to have, because a lot of his statements were quite defensive in a way, to say that there's nothing wrong with their IT systems, it was a contractor. Actually, the social engineering attack was very sophisticated. Actually, it didn't cost much because it's £300 million. We'll get 150 back from insurance. We've got 400 million in the bank anyway, so we can afford it, which is a worrying message to send to the market. And actually, it's good news because they've been able to accelerate some upgrade work during the downtime. And it was almost as if it was absolving themselves of some responsibility to say, well, we've done what we can, and we have no control over what third-party contractors or the supply chain does. And this actually goes into the second question in the chat as well, because we have to assume some form of holding the supply chain to account. And it is daunting because we have so much supply chain, so much digital supply chain in all organizations now, and there can be hundreds of thousands of suppliers. So it can almost feel daunting. There are tools out there to help that with an audit process, to hold those organizations accountable. And I think organizations can look at through their supply list and just start to rank them in terms of who are the high impact ones. If these suppliers or contractors were breached, what do they have access to, and what's going to have the biggest impact on our business? And just focus your efforts there. Because even if you can take, audit and hold the feet to the fire of your top 10 biggest contractors in terms of the risk to your business, that's a good place to start. And I also think in all of these, adopting a zero trust framework, least privilege framework, would really help when thinking about letting third-party organizations inside your business. Which was the second question, actually. Given the rise of supply chain attacks and the increasing complexity of third-party risks, what's the best practices do you recommend organizations to ensure their data storage infrastructure remains resilient and compliant? Well, that's my view in terms of a macro business process perspective. Chris, Sandra, what do you think from more of a kind of a data-centric perspective?
So I think I sort of already answered this question when I gave my sort of opinions on the Marks and Spencers and Co-op attacks, because obviously, we know that some of them were supply chain attacks, and you've just sort of missed out any bits that I didn't mention. Least privilege, give people access that they need to, and I'll sort of half come on to another question that's coming soon. Monitor anything you can monitor around user access, then do that, whether that be someone logging into the box to administer it. You can sort of connect on-tap systems to MFA, identity providers. Some of them, just using Microsoft Entra as an example, you can do conditional access policies and say someone can't log in from country A, or they can only log in at between 9 and 5. Just more and more boundaries you can put around people accessing that data. And that's not even then talking about having your backstop of some sort of secure copy and monitoring. But yeah, just log and audit everything you can, because unless you're a completely closed site, which only exists with certain government organizations and very secure companies, people need, for your company to function, people will need access to your systems. So it needs to be heavily regulated.
Yeah, thank you. Sandra, anything to add to that one?
I suppose from the significant number of years of dealing with customers and prospects, it's for organizations to consider when they go through their refresh cycles and through their infrastructure changes, that they take into consideration all these requirements so that it's not an afterthought. I think, maybe not every organization will have a budget to deliver multiple things at multiple times. And if they, on their cycles, or when they're thinking about what their recoverability is, that they think about the overall footprint. And historically, some of these requirements have been tick box exercises. It's understanding that actually the technology or on the infrastructure that you have supports your process, not that you use your technology capability to tick the process box. I suppose if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. We are rattling towards the top of the hour. There's 2 questions left, which we might have covered in some way. The third question was, with AI-driven malware and automated attack techniques rapidly evolving, how does a secure SAN solution adapt to detect and defend against these sophisticated real-time threats? You've touched a little bit on this, Chris. Is there anything you want to add from this question's perspective?
I think, yeah, I probably have touched on it. I think that's where not just having dumb storage and having some intelligence around it. So from a NetApp point of view, having that ransomware protection service, having that monitor things going on the box, and then alerting if it sees something. It's as you said, Mike, you're fighting AI with AI. So, attackers are being very clever in how they're getting into systems, and then even in how they encrypt the data. It's not just a case that they'll come in and just mass encrypt everything all at once. Some of it will run slowly, or they'll only encrypt bits of the file. So if you can be smarter about that and have intelligence to say, hang on, this doesn't look right, I think we need to warn someone about this. That's a really big sort of tool to have in your chest in the sort of defense against cyber attacks.
Yeah, agreed. Good. All right, last question. What are some early warning signs, both technical and behavioural, that organisations should watch for to spot potential insider threats? I think my view on this is a combination of technology and culture, because there's technology we can put in place, such as behavioural analytics, that's looking for those anomalies and taking action. There's also solutions such as DLP, and there are solutions out there which will combine that with behavioural analytics, look at what normal behaviour is for somebody, moving data around their organisation. There's quite a famous story during lockdown of a mole who essentially inside one of the big pharmacies developing a cure for coronavirus, and they were ahead of the game, and this person was a plant from a different pharmaceutical organisation, and the behavioural analytics and the DLP solution started to pick up the behaviour that was outside of their usual benchmark, and it automatically turned on screen recording, and they were able to then capture this person uploading all these documents to their personal OneDrive, then deleting their trash box, and then rebooting their laptop and kind of wiping their laptop, and all that was kind of captured then, and it helped them make sure that that intellectual property wasn't then leaked to a competitor essentially. But I also think there's a cultural component as well, because insider threats typically were one of the least common, but probably have the biggest impact because of this legacy view that the inside was trusted and they could kind of go where they wanted. And I think we have to have a culture of like a whistleblowing or a speak up culture, whereas if you spot somebody, because we're able to do our own behavior analytics, we're able to know when somebody we work with or somebody in our team isn't behaving quite right. And if that raises a potential risk, then I think we need to escalate it to our managers and in our business as a culture, because we can also use that aspect to defend against it in conjunction with technology. That's my thoughts. Cassandra?
I would second that, Mike. That was a good summary. Obviously, I talk about the data layer, but it goes much beyond that. You can do behavioral analytics with an XDR solution, monitor what people are doing on their laptops, monitor, config changes in applications and all sorts of stuff. I think to summarize it for me, visibility is key.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, in the closing 30 seconds, Sandra, we have a request and we might follow this up with everybody to share the brief of the workshop you talked about earlier. How are we going to disseminate that?
We can. I'll email out the brief to those that want it, and we can have a follow-up conversation if there's additional information needed. But we do have a brief.
Yeah, good. All right, so we'll send that to everybody who registered for the webinar today. If anybody is interested in having a chat, just to kind of explore how that might help, what that looks like, then please get in touch. Sandra's details are in the chat. Contact details will be on the email as well. Thank you so much for joining today. Have a great rest of the week and look forward to speaking to you all soon. Bye for now.